we move on to our next presentation. I request Dr. T. Ganeshan to unmute himself and come on the stage. Welcome, Dr. T. Ganeshan. Dr. T. Ganeshan, with his PhD in Sanskrit, worked as Director of Research at the prestigious French Institute, Pondicherry, since 1985, and now he is a research associate there. He is now working on the project, A Comprehensive History of Shaiva Siddhanta in Tamil Nadu, surveying the contents of the entire gamut of Shaiva Siddhanta literature, both published and unpublished, that spans more than a millennium, as well as that spans the entire period of a millennium, and is also on the project of the critical edition of Shaivagamas. So I welcome you, Dr. T. Ganeshan. He's one of the editors of Sukshmagama. It's a 3 volumes. Work have already been done, and 4th volume is under preparation, published by the French Institute of Pondicherry. The first 2 volumes of Pushkaragama, along with the 2 unpublished commentaries of Umapati and Jnana Prakasha, are critically edited by him for the first time and has been published by National Mission of Manuscripts in New Delhi in 2014. In a similar manner, he has published many texts from the Shaiva tradition. And we are particularly interested because we see Hatha Yoga developing in from various streams, as mentioned earlier, and one of such streams is Shaiva tradition. And eventually, it has also contributed to the development of thought within the Shaiva tradition too. So that's what we will be exploring in this presentation of Dr. T. Ganeshan. He has presented more than 30 seminar and research papers, especially on articles concerning Shaivism and Shaiva Siddhanta, and many of them have been published. His monographs on 2 Shaiva teachers of the 16th century, Jnana 1 and Nigamajnana 2, were published by the French Institute of Pondicherry. He has also been honored with the title Vishwaradhya Vishwabharati by the Jangamawadi Matha Varanasi in the year 2016 for his contributions to the Shaiva tradition. So this is a brief introduction of Dr. T. Ganeshan. I invite him to present. He'll be presenting on the topic of the yoga in the Shaiva tradition, especially in the Shaiva Gamas. Over to you, Dr. Ganeshan.
Thank you. Friends, I thank the organizers of this conference for giving me an opportunity, and as usual, Dr. Paturi Nagaraj and all others for inviting me and giving me an opportunity. My paper is titled not mainly only on the yoga in the Shaiva Siddhanta, but the full title is Yoga in the Shaiva Siddhanta, some concepts and practices in comparison with the Hatha Yoga. So I am comparing some of the Hatha Yoga practices, how they are presented in the Hatha Yoga text, and the Shaiva Yoga as presented in some of the Shaiva Agamas. So the first, I present some of the important concepts of Hatha Yoga based on a few texts. So as introduction, yoga is being part of every religio-philosophical system of the Bharata Desha. It is of various types. The Hatha Yoga is one of the very important types of yoga that is practiced for many centuries. The other types of yoga, incorporating different techniques with a strong doctrinal base, is advocated by the different schools of Shaivism. A brief comparison between Hatha Yoga and the yoga as taught in the Shaiva Agamas will be a rewarding study. Hatha Yoga as expounded in the text. So I am mainly basing on the Hatha Yoga Pradipika of Swatma Rama, which is dated to 16th century. And I quote from a few from Gheranda Samhita and Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. So Hatha Yoga is defined Hakara Kirtita Surya Thakara Chandra Uchyate Surya Chandramasori Yoga Hatayogo Nigadyate. This is from the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati cited in the commentary on Hatha Yoga Pradipika Mangala Shloka. So it is further explained that by Surya and Chandra, the prana and apana are referred. The union of Surya and Chandra is considered to be the Hatha Yoga. Thus, the merger of prana and apana, namely pranayama, is the basic definition of Hatha Yoga. Basically, further, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika states clearly that the practices prescribed in the text are the means to the final Raja Yoga, which is the culmination of Hatha Yoga. So, Raja Yoga is defined as the cessation of all mental modifications, that is known as Asampragnata Yoga. Raja Yogasya Sarva Vritti Nirodha Lakshano Asampragnata Yoga. This idea is very much similar to the ultimate aim of yoga as defined in the Yoga Sutra Patanjali, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It is also said that Hatha Yoga is a ladder to attain the Raja Yoga. Yenopadishta Hatha Yoga Vidya Vibhrajate Pronnata Raja Yogam Arodhamichyoho Adhirohiniva. Which is the Hatha Yoga Pradipika Mangala Shloka. Then, now what is Raja Yoga? It is again defined as Raja Yoga is equivalent to and it is the same as Samadhi. Raja Yoga Samadhisya Unmanicha Manonmani. This is also from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, 4th chapter, 3rd verse. Again, Samadhi is held to be the union of the self and the mind. Tatha Atma Manasor Aikyam Samadhi Abhidiyate. From the Hatha Yoga Pradipika again. The mind, Manasa, and the wind, Maruta, that is Prana, always exist together like milk and water and thus function conjointly. Dugdhambuvat Sammilita Bubhau Tulya Kriyav Manasa Marutauhi. Yes, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So when one is destroyed, the other also gets eventually destroyed. When one functions, the other also does so. When both of them are left free to function, then all the sense organs start functioning. When both are destroyed, that is merged, one attains the state of moksha. This is the explanation found in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Dugdhambuvat Sammilita Bubhau Tulyakriyau Manasa Marutau Tatraika Nashat Aparasya Nasha Eka Pravrittehe Apara Pravrittihi Adhvastayoho Cha Indriya Varga Vrittihi Pradhvastayoho Moksha Padasya Siddhi. Then moksha is defined as Chitta Laya Eva Mokshachyaha, again in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Just as the camphor, when put into the fire, gets completely burnt out, just as the salt added to water gets completely dissolved, thereby losing its individual existence, so also in the ultimate state, the mind, united with the self, completely loses its existence. Karpura manale yadvat Saindhavam salile yatha tatha sandhiyamanancha manastatve manaha tatve viliyate. Now, what is the status of the external world in the Hatha Yoga? So, this way we have seen Raja Yoga, definition Raja Yoga, the conception of Samadhi, Raja Yoga. Yes. Now, what is the status of the external world in the Hatha Yoga? So, is there any discussion? The text clearly states that the entire phenomenon is only due to mind. The entire phenomenal world is due to manas, mind. It does not have any individual existence. Manodrishyamidam sarvam yatkinchit sacharacharam manaso hunmani bhavat dvaitam naivopalabhyate. So this from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Upon the merger of the mind, unmani bhava, the duality outside is no more perceived. Then the Hatha Yogi's final state is defined as Sarvavassa Vinirmuktaha, सर्वचिंता विवर्जितः मृतवत् तिष्ठते योगी समक्तो नात्र संशयः. Hatha Yoga Pradipika. That yogi remains completely free from all states, and he is fully freed of thought, any thought or mental modification. He remains as if he is dead, mritavat, and thus the yogi is considered to be liberated, mukta. From this brief discussion, it is clear that according to Hatha Yoga, that to mainly the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, all the Hatha Yoga practices are aimed to help attain the highest Raja Yoga. The Raja Yoga is the same as Samadhi, which again is equivalent to the complete cessation of all mental modifications, and finally the complete merger of the mind, losing its individuality fully. 3. The highest state of moksha is remaining without the mind and eventually without its modifications, which is comparable to the state of death, mritavat. So as a corollary, one may also conclude that there is no well-defined philosophy as the basis for the system of Hatha Yoga, mainly because it is fundamentally a practical discipline with the sole aim of controlling the body-mind complex with the help of various asanas, mudras and bandhas, which are in turn aimed to eradicate all mental modifications, which is nothing but the Raja Yoga, leading to a state of mindlessness that is comparable to the state of death, mritavat. What is more, we also do not find any mention of the basic nature of the self, and not to speak of any conception of a supreme reality. As an exception, we may cite the passage of the Khairanda Samhita, which is later than the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, that states that by the performance of dhyana, one directly perceives the self, Atma. Pranayama laghavancha dhyanat pratyaksham atmani. But there is no talk of any self or its characteristics in this text, nor in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. With this background of the conceptions of yoga as taught in the Hatha Yoga, let us have a brief presentation of the concept of yoga, its various disciplines to be practiced, and the final aim of the yoga as propounded in some of the Shaiva Agamas. By Shaiva Agama, I mean here mainly the Shaiva Agamas pertaining to the Shaiva Siddhanta system, though the Agamas of the Trika Pratyabhijna system also come under the category of the Shaiva Agamas. So if possible, I may compare a few concepts or practices as prescribed in these Agamas, that is the Bhairava Agamas as well. That is mainly Malini Vijayota. Next, yoga in the Shaiva Agamas. Ideally, these Agamas are held to teach the rites such as the initiation, Diksha, and the worship of Shiva, Kriya, which come under the section Kriya. Of course, there are other points also. Then pranayama, meditation and other yoga practices which come under the yoga pada, yoga section. Philosophical doctrines such as the different categories, padartha, evolution of the world and the tattvas, the state of bondage and mukti, which come under the jnana pada or vidya pada, and the religious and social duties of the initiated Shaivas, which comes under charya pada. In the Agamas, more than anything else, visualization and intense devotion are the foundations on which the entire ritual scheme is developed. Every rite has three components: the physical act, karma, the mantra uttered, vachika, and the corresponding mental visualization, it is manasa kriya. Such a wonderful synthesis of all these three is unique to the Shaiva Agamas. The basic reason behind such a difference is that yoga plays a very prominent role in the rites prescribed in the Shaiva Agamas. Yoga pada in the Agamas. The Sarvajnanottara Agama, Suprabheda, Kirana, Mrigendra, Matanga Parameshwara, Chintya, Sardha Trishadikalottara, and Makuta Agamas have separate chapters on the subject of Shaiva Yoga. For the present study, The Yogapada of the Mrigendra Agama, along with the commentary Vritti, composed by Narayana Kantha, who is dated in the 8th, 9th century. He was pre-Abhinava Gupta. The Yogapada of the Sarvajnanottara Agama with the commentary of Aghora Shivacharya, who later 12th century, are mainly taken up. Where necessary, we may also briefly cite from other Agamas for the sake of comparison. Now, necessity and place of yoga in the Shaiva system. Bhatta Narayana Kantha, the commentator at the beginning, states that even though an initiated sadhaka possesses sound knowledge on the basic categories such as Pati, Pashu, etc. of the Shaiva Siddhanta system, it is the yoga practices that, such as the pranayama and samadhi, that reinforce his knowledge about the self and make Shiva experience, Shiva Anubhava, strong and direct. He also underscores the importance of the practice of dhyana by saying that only through that one becomes free from the clutches of bondages, gets the experience of the bliss of Shiva, and finally realizes fully his own eternal Shivahood. Narayana Kantha also emphasizes that all types of Shaiva initiates, Samayi, Putraka, Sadhaka, Acharya, and he who has been anointed with the Astra Abhisheka should obligatorily practice meditation and other yoga disciplines. Now, concept of yoga. While Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras talks of 8-limbed yoga, Ashtanga yoga, the Matanga Parameshwara Agama speaks about yoga of 6 limbs, and the Mrigendra Agama that of 8 limbs. The Suprabheda Agama also has the same 8 limbs as that of the Yoga Sutra. The Matanga Parameshwara Agama lists pranayama satha dhyanam pratyaharota dharana tarkaschaiva samadhischa shadango yoga uchyate. Then the Mrigendra Agama pranayama pratyaharo dharana dhyana vikshane japaha samadhihi iti angani angi yogo ashtamasvayam. The first 2 limbs, Yama and Niyama, are held to be the basic tenets and are to be followed by all initiated Shaivas, and therefore they are not separate limbs of yoga. The same is very much stressed in the opening verse of the Yogapada of the Sarvajnanottara. Thus, he who is completely detached from the material pleasures due to the fall of grace of Shiva, Shaktipata, who has controlled his sense organs and involves himself in worldly activities in an optimum level, is the most eligible person to undertake the yoga practices as expounded in this text. Further, in the Shaiva Agamas, yoga that is directly related to the supreme reality Shiva is taught as separate from the Angas, as stated by the Matanga Parameshwara Agama Yogapada. Angebhyo anyo atiriktaha san yoga iti upavarnyate. The Mrigendra Agama says Angi yogo ashtamaha swayam. Ramakantha in his commentary on the above mentioned passage of the Matanga Parameshwara Agama explains that in the Shaiva system, yoga directly related to the object of meditation, Dhyayakara Sambandhatmaka, is taught apart from the 6 Angas. The same is called Angi in the Mrigendra Agama. Now, yoga practices. First, the Sarvajnanottara Agama. The commentator Aghora Shivacharya defines the word yoga as being derived from the verbal root yujiri yoge and not from the verbal root yuja samadho. Yujiri yoga ityasmad dhatoho yoga shabdo jneyah natu yuja samadho iti. The same interpretation was given by Narayana Kantha before Aghora Shiva in his commentary on the Mrigendra Agama also. This is the basic difference of the Shaiva conception of yoga from other systems, especially the Patanjali yoga. Apart from this basic difference in the very conception of yoga, there are also many differences in the practices as well as the fruits attained between the yoga taught by Patanjali and the yoga expounded in the Shaiva Agamas. For example, in the Matanga Parameshwara Agama, This is clearly stated by the commentator Ramakantha, the beginning of his commentary on the Yoga Padavati Matanga Parameshwaragama. He says, Asya Pakshyamana Nayena Atma Yogataya Tebhyo Buddhi Yogebhya Prakrishtatvam Yataha. Since the yoga expounded in the Matanga Parameshwaragama is directly concerned with the self, Atma, and hence Atma Yoga, which is going to be established in the commentary, it is definitely superior to the Patanjali Yoga, which is only directly related to the intellect mind, Buddhi Yoga. The meditator, the act of meditation, the object of meditation, and the fruit of meditation are succinctly stated in the verse. Sarvajnanottaragama, Atma Dhyata, Mano Dhyanam, Dhyaya Sukshmo Maheshwara, Yat Param Paramaishwariyam, Etad Dhyana Prayojanam. Aghora Shiva comments that dhyana is the constant or continuous thinking of Shiva's form. Tad Dhrupa Chintanam Dhyanam. Only a few asanas such as Padmaka are mentioned in which the yogi sits during meditation. But in the Tamil text, Tattva Prakasham, which is a Shaiva Siddhanta text composed by Tattva Prakasha of the 14th century, who lived in the Shaiva holy town Shigagi, which is the birthplace of the well-known Shaiva devotee par excellence, Trinyana Sambandha Nayanar. He explains the performance of some of the many asanas in the text. Probably this is the one of the earliest Tamil texts that describes the performance of asanas. The two types of pranayama, Sagarbha and Agarbha, are explained along with the method of performance and the measurement of time. The dharana is explained in the Sarvajnanottara Agama as the meditation on the tanmatras and the various tattvas. Before starting the performance of yoga practices, one is advised to recite mentally the Shiva Moola Mantra. Next is the procedure of dharana, fixing the mind on the tanmatras and the tattvas is explained. One is advised to mentally repeat the Shiva Moola Mantra while performing the dharana, dhyana, etc., which in the Mrigendra Agama is separately called japa. The highest aim of the yoga practices is the direct experience of Shiva in one's own consciousness, for which pranayama, dharana, etc. are the aids. The lesser benefits that accrue due to the yoga practices are also briefly mentioned in the Sarvajnanottara Agama. The yogi starts his meditation by fixing his mind on the tanmatras, then the Vidyeshwaras, and the Sadashiva, and finally on Shiva. Due to regular and continuous practice of meditation, he gets all the qualities of Shiva, such as omniscience, omnipotence, and all-pervasiveness. Then we take the Mrigendra Agama. Yoga is defined by the commentator Narayana Kantha as that which makes manifest one's own Shivahood. Yujyate Shivatva-lakshanaya Swaswarupa Abhivyaktiya. Then the 8 limbs of Shaiva Yoga in the words of the Mrigendra Agama are, as we have seen earlier, Pranayama, Pratyaharo, Dharana, Dhyana, Vikshane, Japas, Samadhi, Ityangani, Angi, Yogoshtama, Swayam. The Dhyana is defined as the continuous thinking of the form of Shiva. Dharana Ruddhasya, Chittasya, Trinetra, Panchavaktradyakara Vishaya Ya Chinta Tadhyanam.
Dr. Ganesh, we have another 5 minutes.
Okay. Thus, by the regular practice of dharana, one's mind becomes fit for dhyana of Shiva. The preceding angas, pranayama and pratyahara, directly aid the mind for practicing dhyana. The continuous and firmly established dhyana is samadhi. Tad ekatanatameti sa samadhi vidhiyate. Then comes the other angas, the japa and uha. Japa is the constant and slow uttering of the mantra so that the object of meditation, namely Shiva, is directly perceived. Mantrasya dhyaya sammukhi-karanaya avartanam japaha ityuktam. It is enjoined in the Mrigendra Agama that one should meditate on each one of the tattvas, beginning from the Prithvi as the body of Shiva. For as these tattvas are by their very nature inert, jada, they apparently do not have any utility in the dhyana. Therefore, one should meditate on them as the form, vapuhu of Shiva. The Niralambana Yoga is These are some of the practices prescribed for Salambana Yoga. The Niralambana Yoga is considered to be the superior one. One can practice meditation based on his guru's guidance on any place or form or anything on which one's mind fully merges and fully abides. Narayana explains this. By the regular and firm practice, one's own innate Shiva nature is fully revealed, by attaining which the person does not come into contact with the impure phenomenal world anymore. Then the Anga Uha is considered to be very important in the Shaiva Yoga. It is defined as a sort of strong reasoning which the yogi undertakes upon attaining a certain advanced level in his yoga practices. Upon reaching that level, he is endowed with certain superior powers, but he does not stop with that there. He, taught by his guru and through his own reasoning, argues to himself about the pros and cons of that yoga level. He concludes that it has certain limitations and therefore decides to attain the next higher level. This constant self-reasoning to advance to the highest state of Shiva is considered to be Uha in the Shaiva Yoga. It is highly recommended for a steadfast yogi. These details are found in the commentary of Ramakanta and Matanga Parameshwara Agama. Then, apart from the Mrigendra Agama that defines Uha as Yadaveti Padam Heyam Upadeyancha Tat Sthitehe Tat Poshakam Vipakshamcha Yacha Tat Poshakam Param. The Swayambhuva Agama also defines Anene Lakshayed Yogi Yoga Siddhi Pravartakam Nirodhakancha Yadvastu Bahudha Samvyavasthitam. The Malini Vijayotara Agama, which is a Bhairava Agama and considered to be highly authoritative by Abhinava Gupta, also speaks about Uha. It also gives Yogangatve Samanevi Tarko Yoganga Muttamam Heyat Yalochanat Tasma Tatra Yatnaha Pashasyate Marge Chetas Thiri Bhutam Heyepi Vishayechaya Prerya Tena Anaye Tavat Yavat Padam Anamayam. So inclusion of Uga, that is Tarka, in the list of Yoga Angas is definitely one of the defining features of the Shaiva Yoga. So, yes. Now, yoga practices in some other Shaiva Agamas. For example, these are some of the Agamas are still unpublished, but the Sadha Trishati Kalottara Agama with the commentary of Ramakanta, published by the French Institute, has many important topics on yoga in some of these chapters. The topics discussed are the Nadi Chakra, nature of 10 important nadis such as Ida, Pingala, Kuhu, etc. The method of performing the special type of meditation called Bhavana with a view to obtain the Siddhi such as Anima. Detailed discussion on the nature of 10 pranas such as Prana, Apana, etc. And description of the main Nadi Chakra situated at the heart lotus, where Shiva with his powers represented by the 4 kalas such as Nivritti, etc. reside, are topics discussed in one chapter. The definition of a special type of time called Adhyatmika Kala, those activities that can be done, those that are prohibited during that Adhyatmika Kala are discussed in, and the details of Pranayama are discussed in the another chapter. In 19th chapter discusses about the Prasada Mantra, Sakala, Nishkala, Shunya, etc. It's the types. Then in the 21st chapter, we get the 8 pratyayas of an adept in yoga, which indicate his achievement of the 8 siddhis.
Dr. Ganesh, can we take up the questions now?
Yes. Okay. So I have some more points, but can I have 3 minutes because I have started only at 5.
Sure. That's what half an hour was there, so we thought we can take some of these things in the question answer.
Okay. So, of course. Okay, because these are.
I mean, anything. I mean, you can just add some concluding lines, and then we can take up the.
So the Chintya Agama, another unpublished Agama, discusses about the Samadhi Lakshana, and there is a chapter called Samadhi Raja Patala, where it discusses about the topics on yoga and description of yoga with 27 limbs, beginning from Shaucha and ending with Ananda, meditation on Shiva who exists in the form of the Guru, and meditation on the various Aksharas and Vama and other Shaktis, all are discussed there. The Matanga Parameshwaragama Yogapada has 7 chapters, which is very elaborate, and the commentary of Ramakantha is very elaborate, where he brings out the specialities of Shaiva Yoga and compares very often with the Patanjali Yoga, how it is superior to Patanjali Yoga, and how it is. All these things are discussed in the commentary. So Matanga Parameshwaragama with 7 chapters is a most very elaborate one. So with this very brief presentation, I conclude my paper. And once again, I thank the organizers and the listeners also for giving me an opportunity. Thank you, Nandal. Shivam Bhuyat.
Thank you, Dr. Ganeshan, for this wonderful presentation, especially delineating the fine differences between the yoga tradition as well as the Shaiva, Agama, and Shaiva traditions. Maybe we'll have a couple of questions and then we move on to the next speaker.
Yeah.
You were referring to the chakras and all in some of the agamas, and in the previous speaker was also speaking about the chakras. So to what extent do you find the discussion on the chakras or the description, how systematically has it been developed within the Shaiva Agama fold? Any thoughts and comments on that?
Yes. So though nearly 8 to 10 agamas, as I have listed, have yoga chapters, yoga padas, and all the agamas do not discuss or expound the same type of yoga. There are at certain common points, but each agama has its own special features. And the Shadadhara, the 6 lotuses, though they are found in some texts, they do not form the main burden of the Shaiva Yoga.
Okay.
Yoga. So main it is dhyana with bhavana and the mantra uttered along with that, and going above, advancing further and further, and reaching, that is the final Shivahood, Shivananda, Shiva Anubhava, Shivatva should be manifested. That is the main aim. And by getting the Shivananda, Shivatva, one's own highest power of knowledge and action, that is Jnana Kriya, that is called Chaitanyam, Jnana Kriya Swabhava. So that is manifested. So that is the aim. So the lower level, all other siddhis, other powers are attained.
So would you say then dhyana, bhavana, attaining Shivahood, these are the shared teachings of all these Shaivagamas, like they are common, more or less they all of them
Yes.
agree on these.
Yes, yes. This is slightly common, mostly common in the Shaiva Siddhanta and the Bhairava Agamas, especially in the Malini Vijayottara, etc. But in the Bhairava Agamas, the possessing, Avesha, Shivatva Avesha is the discussed there, not the manifesting. Of course, the manifesting comes there, but Shivatva is Aveshatva, that is that he possesses Shiva. So that is stressed more there in the, and the siddhis, attaining siddhis, that is very important in the Bhairava Agamas. Though the Shaiva Siddhanta tradition also, Anima, Mahima, etc., Ashtasiddhis and much more are also there. And the Dharana, all are used. The Dharana is slightly given different interpretation here. Varuni Dharana, the Prithvi, Parthivi Dharana, etc. There are 4 or 5 Dharanas. And like that, there are differences. So Bhairava Agamas and Shaiva Siddhanta Agamas do share certain common views, especially Uha, Tarka, etc. But the main aim is slightly different, the final fruit.
And how far do they extend in terms of time? Like to what time do they belong and till what time they were being written, the Shaivagamas?
Yes. We see the Kirana Agama, all are the Matanga Parameshwara, they all, the commentator itself, commentator himself lived in the 8th, 9th century, Narayana Kanta, the Ramakanta's father. So all these Agamas, they all predate. And definitely they were well developed in the 5th, 6th centuries. And I have of course to be further research. The Bhairava Agamas come slightly later. The Shaiva Siddhanta tradition is still earlier. In fact, they are the earliest. because Shakta Agamas we cannot date practically except the Kaula system. But Shaiva Siddhanta Agamas are much more earlier, nearly 4th to 5th centuries. Because Sadhyo Jyoti has commented, Sadhyo Jyoti lived in the 6th, 7th century in Kashmir. So all these Agamas, Swayambhu Agama, Raurava Agama, all were before him. So definitely between 2nd and 4th century, they were well systematized, well available. The earliest stream of Shaiva tradition.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ganeshan, for enlightening us on these aspects.